Looking back, I'm pleased with how last Saturday went, especially the first half. I thought we came out, played Mississippi State football. I had 11 guys running the ball on defense, playing hard. Offensively, I played with some good tempo, with pretty aggressive approach to the game, getting after people, able to run the football, and those are things that we really like to do. I think that hour and 20-some minute halftime break, I think that that's always tough, just keeping the focus, I think, on the team, keeping the intensity up over that break. So I don't think we had as good a second half as I would have liked to have had in the game, but I'm pleased with our guys making the plays we needed to make to win down the stretch, to win that football game. So this week, obviously going to be a much different challenge going on the road, a very difficult environment to go play in against an excellent football team that's got talent across the board at every position. They got dynamic playmaking wide receivers. They got probably the best running back in America, but he's just one of a stable of great running backs that they have. A bunch of veteran players on the offensive line on that side of the ball. A lot of playmakers on the defensive side of the ball with dynamic secondary, physical, athletic defensive linemen, and some linebackers that have played a bunch of football that can really run. So they don't have a lot of weaknesses on their team. You look at the personnel; they have as good players as anybody in America, and so it's going to be a great challenge for us in a tough environment to go out there and find a way to win.
Questions?
Coach Martinez started the second half at left tackle. Just what did you see on film from him, and talk about the offensive tackle rotation you guys are having?
Yeah, well, I mean, we want to rotate guys. I mean, I love rotating guys. I mean, I think if you watch us play, I love getting guys reps in the game. I thought he did some good things. He missed a couple of critical things in the second half. It just comes from experience, comes from trust and knowing what to do and trusting your technique and what's going on the field. But the more we can get guys ready to play and be game ready and have game experience, the better off we're going to be in the long run.
Was Elton all right? Mm-hmm. Or is he just rotating thing?
Yeah, we're rotating him through.
With Will Coleman, is he going to be back this week, and what kind of boost does he do when he comes back?
Obviously, a senior player that was an explosive pass rusher for us, so it'll be close to see whether or not he makes it back this week for us. A guy that we had put in as a starter for us going into the season. Lose him for the first couple games, obviously. Slows you down, but getting him back is going to add depth because the other guys have gotten to play, other guys have gotten experience, so it's just going to add some depth to the defense.
How do you ensure that you keep the same intensity that you had from last week to go into this week against a tougher, more difficult opponent on the road?
Well, I'll guarantee you I'll bring the intensity every single day of practice and make sure as the leader, I got to set that standard, and I'll set that standard really high to make sure we play with that same level of that same sense of urgency. The desperate intensity we need to go win a game, and it's up to me to make sure that I set that standard high, and then I'll make sure everybody lives up to that.
Dan, now throughout the entire offseason, you talked about consistency and a team being consistent. How have you seen that translate into the regular season, both being inconsistent and then consistent as well?
Well, I think with a lot of young players, they're finding their way through it right now. And because game atmospheres you can't simulate games in practice. You can't simulate the emotions, the plays, how it affects you, and having to come back and respond from adversity, respond from success, and put it behind you and play the next play. So I think our guys are learning how to deal with that, learning how to be consistent from a play-to-play basis. And then, as young guys, it's something they're going to have to continue to grind on moving forward.
Obviously, you brought back a pretty veteran defensive line, but so far Jeffrey Simmons and Marquise Spencer have been able to get in the rotation pretty good. What have you seen from those two guys that allows them to keep getting more reps?
Well, I think they have, they have athleticism, they have size, and a little bit of physical maturity. I think that helps. A lot of times younger players getting on the field, a certain level of physical maturity is going to help it. They're physically ready for the demands and can do the things we ask them to do that, where other guys sometimes, need a little bit more development. Not that the other guys aren't going to be great players, and if you look at us throughout the year, some guys, have a physical tool that fits in a little better right away day one, and other guys, as they develop, can actually bypass those guys and be even better players. But both those two guys have that. I think just the size certainly helps them.
How do you kind of assess changing the defense? We're seeing a lot of that 3-4, a lot of guys. We saw Marquise lining up and covering wide receivers. How do you feel like that group has handled it so far in the first 2 games?
Well, pretty good. We want to stay multiple. We want to be as multiple as we can on defense and give you different looks, moving from 3-4 to 4-3, putting different personnel on the field in different situations and try to create matchup advantages for our defense. So I think our guys did. To me, though, defense comes down to 11 guys running the ball, tackling the football. And I think in the first half we did that really, really well on Saturday night.
How much does LSU changing quarterbacks? How much does that change their offense? How much does that make it tougher to prepare for them?
I don't think they named a starter, right? Have they officially changed?
Just them introducing him.
Yeah, I don't. It's different guys, so you got to get ready for multiple guys, and each of them bring a little something different to the table.
You've talked a couple times about having not so much a young team, but having new guys in new roles.
Mm-hmm.
How do you you talked about you can't simulate practice, but how do you bring up the fact that a lot of them are going into their first SEC road game environment and going into that situation for the first time?
Yeah, we got to coach them up and get them ready for it. Again, you're not going to be able to simulate. We can't put 102,000 people watching practice yelling and screaming. So, you got to try to simulate some of the adverse situations as best as possible.
Kind of jumping off that question, how do you prepare a player, maybe like a Chris Stantz, not necessarily him specifically, but someone you didn't expect to maybe see the field this year because of injuries, he's forced to more playing time. How do you balance getting him playing time but also not giving him too much?
Well, that's on the coaches, that's what we try to do is one of the things is put guys in situations and positions where they can succeed. And I think that's one of the things coaches get themselves in trouble and say, okay, this is what we do, and so we're going to do it no matter what the personnel is. I think you always have to be able to adapt to your personnel, and for us, personnel, due to injuries, and our personnel is very different maybe than we thought it might be at this point. And so we have to be able to adapt as coaches to make sure these are the guys that are playing. How do we put those guys in a position to succeed?
A.J. Jefferson, defensive lineman of the week this past week. Just his progression to where he is now as a leader and things. Just what is he? Can you talk about where he was to where he is now as a senior?
It's night and day. Not even close to where he's been. I think came in, he redshirted, very, very played minimally, if at all, as a redshirt freshman. Started to get a little bit of rotation as a sophomore, then played a lot as a junior. And you just see the development within the program, not just, his physical development, in being a little bigger, faster, stronger, his technical development and being a better technique player, understanding the game so that it allows him to use his technique in the scheme to go make plays out there on the field because he understands the game and what's going on. And he's grown, having gone through all of that, to be a leader and to make sure everybody understands that to get to where you are, you don't just show up and you're a great player. You have to work at it. He's worked for going into 5 years now, working to become a great player. So it's a great honor for him this week. But I think with him, it just shows the progression of what hard work and development can do for a player.
Naming Nick the starter last week, what do you think that did for his confidence, not to have to look over his shoulder?
Yeah, what I didn't want to do is how we gave them reps, I don't know that anybody was really looking over their shoulder much all through camp. Everybody was just competing, even going into game one. But after that first game, I didn't want him to think that there was, that he needed to worry about that. I think that the plan through camp and even through game one, I don't think there was any pressure of one way or the other, but going forward into the season, I didn't want him to have to feel that, so I'm sure that helped a little bit.
Coach, there are some things obviously Nick did well and some things you'd like to see him work on. What's kind of your message to him this week to kind of clean up for LSU?
Got to get better. Every single day you got to work to get better. But not just him, that's all of our players, you look at what he did, I think he set a school record for rushing by a quarterback, but it wasn't like making dynamic runs, making 7 people miss and running 4 people's over on a play. He made good reads and the line blocked well. And if you execute well, I think you can see that you're going to have success. If you execute poorly, you're not going to. And so hopefully he just looks at the things he did well, continues to do those things well. Look at the things where he made some mistakes and not make those mistakes again. Not to say he'll probably, I'm sure he'll make some different mistakes on Saturday night down at LSU. And but hopefully the mistakes he's already made, he corrects, he fixes and plays with confidence and understand, hey, you're going to make mistakes, and when you do, that's fine. Let's respond from it, come back, and not make the same mistake again.
How do you go about improving? I know you mentioned it last Saturday, the red zone efficiency there. What have you seen on tape and how to get better?
I think it's everywhere. I got to do a better job making sure I'm putting us in the right situation. We got to do a better job executing certain deals. What I'd say, I guess, is it's everywhere. There's not one glaring thing in the red zone. It's not, hey, this is our issue right now with the red zone. It's a little bit of everything, and we practice there an awful lot, so our guys are very comfortable down there. So I don't see it as a major issue for us. With the comfort, I just think it's a slight tweak of me making sure I have guys in the right situation, and then us just executing a little bit cleaner.
You talked about earlier the intensity in the second half needed to pick up this past Saturday. The first couple of games kind of been, the second half's been a little bit, maybe, not as what you would have liked to have seen. Is there anything on film that you've seen to dictate why that's happened, or is it an intensity
I think
thing?
there's a lot of just different situations, We look, week one, we got a lot of young players. We're leading at the halftime. It's hot. You come out, the stadium's almost empty. In the second half, there's just not a lot of intensity anywhere, and young guys kind of not knowing how to respond to that situation. They got to go. They got to learn. Last week, I'll be honest with you. You try everything, but you get yourself up to a certain level of intensity. You go play for a certain level of intensity, and then say, hey, go sit around for an hour and a half, and then try to come back out and recreate that again. It's hard to get yourself up at that level again. It just, I don't know if there's an athlete in the world that could really try to bring themselves immediately back to that level, unless you, if we knew halftime was an hour and a half, I bet we'd prepare for it a little bit.
I know the cliche is defenses win championships, but recently with the game changing, how has the offense kind of worked into that dynamic?
Well, you still got to score points. I don't know, go watch championship games. Defense wins championships. So, but I do think, I think there's also a relative deal between offense and defense. Offense, you're going to go super high up tempo offense, you're going to run more plays. Well, statistically speaking, you run more plays, you're going to get more yards, you're going to score more points. But I still think you have to play great defense if you want to have a chance to win. And it's just, it's the relative, maybe what your standard or what you judge great defense to be might change depending on whether you're playing, 60 plays or 85 plays a game, the standard between the defense will change a little bit. But it's still all about, you got to play great defense to win.
And just to follow up on that, how has the importance of a quarterback changed recently and how the game keeps evolving?
Well, I think, I don't know. I think quarterbacks are always kind of the focal point. And I think what you just see is people making sure they're utilizing the talents of their quarterback, keeping defenses on edge. There's a lot of teams out there that are going to run the quarterback more than others. Doesn't mean that that's the right deal. If there was one perfect offense or one perfect defense, everybody run the same thing. It's making sure you put your players in a position to be successful and you do what you feel best fits your program, the personnel you have, and what you believe in and what the players believe in. And I think that's the most important thing schematically. You look at running quarterbacks can win, and non-running quarterbacks can win. And, both, as long as the coaches, you're putting them in a position to be successful, you're going to have a chance.
Coach, Jacksonville State had some success against LSU, running some zone read last week. Is there an advantage gained by seeing how they would defense that, or does it become a guessing game because they're going to make some adjustments this week?
Well, it's still really early in the season. Again, it's only the second game that they've played with they only have 2 games they've played with a new staff, so you don't have an awful lot to go on that way. But I guess, the reverse is true for them watching us. They only have 2 games to watch our defense on, too. So, you just got to make your adjustments off of what you see, what they expect. They do a good job. They mix it up, show you a lot of different looks, a lot of different pressures, a lot of different coverages on the back end. So you just have to, you got to be disciplined and prepare for it and execute at a high level.
I think Nick actually leads the SEC in yards per rush, Fitzgerald that is. How do you envision the quarterback, again, like Dak in the past, leading the team in rushing?
Well, I think one of the things is if you're playing one quarterback and you're playing 3 tailbacks, it's tough to compare them statistically because, you got to do is compare the running back position to the quarterback. So, and the running backs had more carries than he did. He had a couple long ones, which obviously are going to help his average. So, but I would imagine by the end of the year, our running backs will have more carries and yards than our quarterbacks.
And to follow up, you kind of answered, but how does the running quarterbacks this year compare to what Dak was doing the last couple of years?
Well, not a whole lot different. I don't know that our team, we were a little bit more passing team last year and a little bit more running team the year before that. Nick's a different style runner than Dak was, so, part of the look's going to be that way. I think he's faster than Dak, a little more explosive with the ball in his hand than Dak. We got to see, I don't know, he has the physicality. I don't know if he's as physical a runner as Dak was, so it's a little different style of running.
Any other questions? All right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
My off-season media